Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show. You can check me out on Twitter at Total Tutor and also Total Radio Net, and LinkedIn, Neil Haley, Instagram, Total Tutor, Pinterest, Neil Haley, Google Plus, and at neilhaley.com. And I tell you, crazy day. Started media all day. If you watch some of the news shows later in the month, you'll see that you'll find out about my personal assistant, all that stuff. But I can't wait always for Fridays, because one Friday a week we're in television studio mode. The other three are on the radio. Coach Karen Hall, ESPN.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Analyst, UNLV, running Rebs. WPL Hall of Famer. How are you?
I'm excited. You know, I love this studio. I love the radio too, but this is gets my adrenaline pumped up. And we have Mr. Chris Curd, our executive director from the Pittsburgh Flag Football League, in studio with us. Chris, welcome to our show.
Thank you guys both. I really do appreciate the opportunity to come on and speak a little bit about my football experience, and then more importantly about the Flag Football League and some of the exciting opportunities we're doing in the future.
All right, fantastic.
Good. Well, to begin with, you know, Chris wasn't always an executive director. He was a student athlete.
Yes.
So prior to being a student athlete, how did that evolve to that point of collegiate football?
You know, it really all began, you know, and I won't go back too far, so I won't get too crazy.
Okay. Yes.
I'd say age 10 maybe with sport of football. Okay. And quite frankly, I wasn't even a huge fan of it. I got into it because my older brother played and because my mom enjoyed it.
Right.
And so I did it because it made her happy.
Okay.
My first love, to be honest with you, was actually basketball, but I wasn't that good at it. That was the sport I worked. That was the sport I worked hard at, but it just didn't kind of come like football did.
Okay.
Fast forward a little bit to high school, and this is where I really started to kind of come into my own and get a really good understanding of what position was best for me.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I found with football early on was that I was out of position. They had me playing running back, and as a young kid, you know, when you're playing running back, you essentially see the entire field.
Yes.
You see all 21 other guys.
Coming at you.
Right, whether they're on your team or not.
Right.
And it can be a little bit overwhelming.
Right.
And so in high school, my high school coach said, hey, listen, why don't you go out and play receiver? And I said, well, that'd be great. I love Jerry Rice. I think he's the best. He's like, play receiver. And I said, well, what do I have to do? He's like, beat the DB and catch the football. I was like, and that's it? He's like, yeah, that's it. No problem. No sweat. I said, okay. And that's what spawned really my big interest in the sport of football.
Wow.
Being able to go out to receiver. I was fortunate enough to earn a scholarship, played for the University of Pittsburgh from 99, came out in the 04 draft.
Okay.
I wasn't drafted, but I did sign as an undrafted free agent. So,
very interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the high school. Where'd you play high school football?
Youngstown, Ohio, Ursuline High School. It's a small Catholic school, but by PA standards, how you guys say quad A is the largest.
Right.
Yes.
So we would probably be considered a single A school. So it was a very small school. We only had 35, 40 guys on our team.
Wow.
But 7 of us got Division I scholarships.
Nice.
So we were a very good program.
So when you look at the school that you're at, the high school that you graduated from, academically, did the school prepare you for the next level of college?
Absolutely did. But I'll also be the first one to admit I didn't take high school as seriously as I should have.
Yes, okay.
I'll be honest with that. Okay, so for me to sit here and say I was a scholar athlete would be an absolute outright lie.
Yes.
But I will say this, going to a Catholic school, being prepared on that level at a young age allowed me to approach college with a much larger discipline.
Right.
And then that freshman year here at Pitt, getting redshirted and having that, you know, excuse me, really freedom to really begin to explore academics really was the main catalyst.
What grade did that change for you? Most people, it becomes at 11th, 12th grade when the reality of almost over hits. Where did the academic seriousness change for you?
I would say freshman year of college. And it wasn't so much that it was a shift in, oh, I won't be able to play football anymore. It was now that I'm redshirted and the responsibility and the weight of having to play at a high level wasn't there anymore.
Yes.
I felt a little, you know, more poised in the matter. It's, hey, just show up for practice. That's all you got to do. Show up for practice this year, do what you can in school. And really that's when my mind started to really open up, freshman year of college at Pitt, 99.
Okay, 99. Let's take us back. You're recruited by what schools getting ready to go? How did you decide on the University of Pittsburgh?
So how it happened was going into my senior year, didn't have a ton of Division I offers. I really didn't have any at all. I was getting looked at by a couple of MAC schools and some other Division I schools, but my grades just simply weren't there.
Right.
And so what wound up happening was went to a couple camps, and people saw my height, saw my size, saw my
Yes.
speed, and liked that. And a couple offers came in from Ohio University. That was my first one. Bowling Green was another one. Youngstown State, 1AA, but at that time it was a very good program. Just when Jim Tressel was still coaching there. Northern Iowa, another 1AA school. And then there was a few other Division I schools that came. And what wound up happening was I went on a few visits, and I came to Pitt. My entire time growing up in Youngstown, for you guys that are probably aware, Youngstown is a small town,
Yeah.
not
Right.
real big, you know.
Right.
I always wanted to be in a larger urban environment. That was important to me. And so having an opportunity to come to Pittsburgh, to me, it was big here. And so that's
Yes.
where it started to open up. After I committed to Pitt, then more offers came.
Of course.
Oklahoma, you know, wanted to discuss, and there was a few other schools, but it was funny. Pitt was the one that said, we'll roll the dice on you, regardless of the grades. We want you. And so that always resonated with me. Bob Junko, who's still one of the assistants there, he was the one who recruited me. Amazing guy. I owe a lot to him.
So you weren't heavily recruited. You ended up at Pitt. So as you wanted to be in an urban setting, were you thinking about, you know, the type of program Pitt had at that time, academically? You know, did you have an idea of what it was you wanted to become and major in? Talk to us about those tangibles.
Even at that age, I knew I wanted to be involved in business in some capacity. I didn't know what it was going to be. I didn't know how I was actually going to arrive at that point.
Okay.
But I knew I wanted to make money. I knew I wanted to help folks, and I wanted to be, in my own mind, and at least in the eyes of my parents and family and friends, successful. And so I wasn't quite sure what that path was going to be. But coming from a small town and coming to Pittsburgh and seeing Pittsburgh as a larger city, that appeared to be the route to go down. So that's the direction I started to take, really.
Any role models along this path with you?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, a ton. Both coaches, non-coaches, family and friends. I mean, you know, even some of my peers I would consider role models. I was fortunate enough when I came in to Pitt. At the time I was there, I was fortunate and unfortunate because at the time I played there, I played in the same wide receiver room with 2 Biletnikoff winners and a Heisman Trophy finalist. So fortunate in the sense that some of my peers were actually role models. You know, guys that myself, Antonio Bryant, Lamar Slade, we all came in together.
Wow.
Okay.
My senior year, when I started a few games before I got hurt, Larry Fitzgerald was there. I was
Right.
opposite Larry. And so some of my peers were actually role models when it came to the actual nitty-gritty of playing football. But then there were a ton of coaches. Art Carter, you know, a high school coach that I had back in the day. Business professionals, my father, my mother, my grandfather especially. There was just a lot of people that helped build me to the person
Yes.
that I am right
Yes.
now, both on the field and off the field.
Interesting, Chris, when you talk about the Pitt, choosing Pitt. When you went to Pitt, Pitt was building the program. I
Yes.
remember completely. You're talking about you were the wide receiver after Antonio to that point, to the injury, and the year that Walt was the coach, right? Walt Harris.
Yes.
Walt Harris.
Yep.
Coach Harris was the coach. They really started to rely more on throwing the football, and you guys are still playing in Three Rivers, right?
We had my freshman year. We were in Pitt Stadium, and then so I was
Okay.
redshirted, and then we went to Three Rivers for 1 year.
Yeah.
And then the first 3 years in Heinz Field.
Okay, so yeah, but you were Three Rivers is the year that I believe that the program started to.
Yes, it started to change. Definitely.
Started to change.
Yes.
It started to be
100%.
where it was and stuff, and the excitement of playing Penn State at Three River Stadium and all that stuff. So that year you weren't injured at all. That year for.
No, I played some. I actually played a little bit of receiver.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was and special teams as well, or
Yeah, oh yeah. I played special teams all 4 years.
Okay.
That's where I got my letter from. Unfortunately, after that year in Three Rivers, this is where I started to shift positions. Call it youthful stupidity, call it impatience. I don't know, but I didn't quite get the results like I wanted to. And so I moved out of receiver and went to, my gosh, I went to linebacker for a little while, which was terrible because I'm not that good at defense. And then I wound up at tight end. And behind another guy, one of my classmates, Chris Wilson.
Yes.
I believe 7-8 years in the
NFL.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just never could quite get up the weight. I was like 245 pounds. I was the biggest I've ever been, but I wasn't big enough to play there. And I wound up eventually going back to defense to be in the secondary. And I knew I wasn't going to play, but I simply really admired and looked up to Coach Paul Rose, who left Pitt and was the head coach of Iowa State for a few years.
Yeah.
he was an amazing guy, amazing father figure, amazing coach, and a good mentor. And I wanted to just be in that defensive back room, even though I knew I wasn't going to play.
Yeah.
And so he worked with me, and I was there, and I still played on all the special teams. And then, quite frankly, going back into my senior year, when I saw that Lamar Slade had left from receiver, Larry was there, the job was open. I'd asked to go back, and they said flat out, they said, hey, look, you can come back over here, but understand you are going to be at the bottom of the depth chart. I said, that's fine. I just want to have fun. I just want to have a good time on my way out the door.
Okay.
And went back and wound up having an incredible spring. Got the Most Improved Player Award. I forget what it's called, but received that award, did well. And then at the beginning of the season, I rotated a few games, and then was starting by the Texas A&M game. And then ironically, happened to be the game that I got hurt, tore my knee up.
So, having coached, players, they do get impatient. I'm going back to that part of, the shifting positions. So what did you learn that you've been able to use today about maybe you have to take a little bit more time before you can go to the next step?
Right.
What's that experience?
I think a lot of it was believing, and I think in any athlete, any young athlete's mind, and you kind of have to have this. You have to have this blind belief that you're better than what you actually are. I remember very distinctly, Coach Harris said to us when he recruited each and every one of us, he said, do you want to play in the National Football League? And I said, yes. He said, good. Because if you don't, I don't even want you coming here.
Wow, okay, that's
They
great.
want you to aspire higher, which is a good thing. I mean, it's a good thing.
Yes.
Bringing it up to speed to where the incident happened where I just more or less became impatient. I felt that I was better than when I was being given the opportunity to show. And in life now, after the fact, looking back, reflecting, one of the big lessons I think I learned from that is really digesting the whole situation.
Right, because you
Not
never
just
knew
the-
that your senior
right.
year would have happened. You wouldn't have been in the depth
Exactly.
chart of that certain spot
Exactly.
if you would have decided just to stay wide receiver.
Right.
Not going around all those things.
Right.
I think it helps you with your business today because you
Yeah.
understand so many positions on the field.
Yes.
Well, I think all
Yes.
of them.
And in
Yeah.
that
And
business.
teaching to understand
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
It
it
definitely
worked
does.
out in the long run and all that. So take it back when, again, the Pitt program's making its rise again. It's coming back to its prominence with Coach Harris. What did Coach Harris instill in you guys that had you believe that you guys could win again?
I think the biggest thing that Coach Harris, and not just him, but also the entire staff,
Okay.
Brian Deal, at that time, I believe he was the head of recruiting. The one thing that I think that they instilled was putting good men around
Yes.
each other. I'm very proud to say that, out of the gentlemen that played in my class, that my final year, out of I believe it was about 20 or so
Right.
guys that worked out for our pro day, 17 of us got drafted or signed
Nice.
Oh, my.
that year.
It's incredible.
We had a lot of guys get drafted, and a lot of guys that just, quite frankly, maybe didn't have the playing time,
Yeah.
but got signed. They got opportunities. In addition to that, I can't say for sure, but I believe all except for 2 of my classmates got the degree, either right at 4-year
That's
mark
good.
or very
Yeah.
soon after.
Do you think Coach Harris? When we get back, I'll ask that question. You're watching we get back more Chris Curd
Yeah.
and talking Pitt football.
Yeah.
I guess I want to bring up the excitement of beating Penn State, and now we get the opportunity to take Penn State out this year. And I'm excited about that game. I think we're like 8-point favorites or something like that. I
Yeah.
think it's something like that. So
It's gold and blue
I'm
team,
expecting gold and blue for sure. And I'm gonna. Now we have a babysitter, so I might be heading down to Heinz Field a few times this year. Maybe with a press pass, as I was telling about Nick Bonino, invited maybe to be a media at that event. So we'll see. You're watching the Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.
William Miller! William Miller! William Miller, come forth!
We're back to the Neil Haley Show. You can check me out on Twitter at Total Tutor and Total Radio Net. That's going to tweet everything. Total Tutor will talk about I own a tutoring and consulting company. I do social media and branding for companies. And then also I have this gigantic radio and television network. And I'm with Chris Curd. We're talking Hail the Pit. We're talking about different things. And Coach knew I'd get to that. And that's why she said, oh, I know Chris. That's going to be the point. So the point, how did Coach Harris instill to you guys about graduation? You said the graduation was so well. A lot of major Division I schools, that's not the case at all.
Sure.
So because Coach Harris gets the bad rap,
Right.
by a lot of people.
Well, a lot. I mean, and quite frankly,
Win the losses.
Right. Well, and
but he still won some.
right. Well, and to be fair and to be honest, I would probably say a lot of players would probably say the same thing too, that they weren't necessarily big fans of Coach Harris. Okay, but the one thing that no one can deny, okay, Coach Harris put good individuals in the locker room. Period. He put good people in the locker room. He put pretty good coaches in front of us at all times. And regardless of how the execution was handled, no one ever questioned if he knew from a football standpoint what he was talking about.
Okay.
No one ever questioned that. No one ever did. Ever.
But I'll have to defend the coaches because most players, collegiate athletes, during the time in which they are playing, are usually not big fans
of the coach. That's true.
Because they're taking you through the day-to-day, the intensity is high, the demands and expectations on everything from your
And that's
time.
that's the coach's livelihood.
That's the coach's livelihood.
Yeah.
So it is not only until after you leave the program, move on a couple years, and then you realize, wow, was that guy a good coach? Because of now you're in life now. Now you have to become this professional. Now you have to draw on all those athletic experiences to then move you past a point of your profession.
So are you in touch with Coach Harris still at all? Or
Usually at alumni events. Events, because he's still locally, he lives here.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know.
He lives here locally still.
He's not in the NFL anymore?
Not from what I understand. I think for a little while after he left Stanford, he was doing some consulting work for some high schools locally, just with quarterbacks and offenses.
Oh, really? So he never went back to the NFL, the coach?
And now I think he's just retired fully here. But he always shows up at like alumni events. Everyone says hello to him. I mean, it's always
really?
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, because similar to what Coach Hall was saying, when you're going through the motions of Division I athletics, pressures are high. Okay, demand is high. You love to sit here and say that coaches haven't made promises that they can't keep. Okay?
Right.
They do the best they can to manage a lot of young
So
egos.
true.
Absolutely.
Young egos. And so when doing that, everybody's not going to be happy.
No, because
It's just
everyone
the
thinks they're
reality.
the best player, and they're not.
That's
Or that's the opinion of a coach.
That's just the reality.
And then a coach that can win is able to put the team together and win. But you look at what Walt had, he was able to win.
Sure.
And that's the bottom line.
and
It's
I'm
like
always-
you're not getting players like some of these other major schools, like Penn State, getting these blue chippers every day, and they're not winning as much. And they have 100,000 people, 110,000 to recruit to.
The thing with coaching is managing talent. With the X's and O's, I'm not going to sit here and marginalize it and say, well, they'll take care of themselves. But a lot of it, especially with football at the collegiate level, because you're dealing with 100+ kids, is management of talent and management of those egos. And how does your staff do that as well? And so for the time period that we were at Pitt and I played there with some great local guys, Rod Rutherford, Lusaka Polite, Tutu Ferguson, Rob Butler. I mean, a lot of these guys that were big names here locally, Walt was still able to recruit and then bring in a pretty good cavalcade of talent from Florida, Ohio, Jersey, Maryland area, and find a way for us to really, get along and make it happen and produce some sort of wins. In the end of the day, I would say for the most part, we're all pretty good men. And that's the thing that matters most.
That's very good.
After the fact.
That's after the fact, after those 4 years. So I know you're excited about this Penn State football.
No, I want to talk about his business more than anything.
Good.
So we have 8 minutes.
Good.
So because there's not enough time.
Yeah.
I'll go to the question. See, I could stick to these. This is me in my how many interviews I've had, Chris. But let's kind of go. Let's kind of go right to why the business.
Yes.
Why again flag football? I think for kids it's great because then you don't the head injuries. This is a good thing to consider. A friend of mine, Darnell Dinkins, always said it's important to first play the other way don't constantly get those head injuries till they're getting close to high school because it's more skill
Yes.
in flag football,
Fundamental.
right?
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons.
Fundamental.
And I'll tell this, flag football and tackle football, there is a very large fundamental difference
Yeah.
between it. However, at the young age, it does become very dicey getting kids involved in tackle at a very young age. Okay, the reason being is because, quite frankly, some kids are just more athletically and physically gifted than
Yes.
others. And that's not to say that we should put them in a box and say, no, you can't do things. But what happens is if, for instance, if your child, this is their first experience with football or any contact sport for that matter, if they're hit or if the contact becomes like a surprise situation that they weren't expecting, it could potentially turn them off to it
Yes.
altogether. With flag football on the reverse side it's a gradual introduction to the idea of catching a football, running with a football, knowing who's on offense, understanding who's on defense, and understanding what the ultimate goal is. When you introduce it that way, it gives kid the opportunity to grow within it.
So more so the fundamental of how to play football, how
Yes.
to be on a team.
Yes.
What's the age? I've seen it in action. So what are your ages?
So right now we're going from 7 to 15.
7 years
Okay.
old.
7 to 15. This past spring was one of our largest seasons we've ever had. We had just over 190 kids.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
Every Sunday afternoon over on the south side of Couple Stadium. It's been an amazing growth that we've gone through. And I would say a large part is attributed to some of the advertising and a lot of participation from the NFL at the national level. Also, too, I'd be lying if I said that a lot of parents aren't reading some of the articles and some of the research that's out there about contact
Yes.
sports.
That's right.
And so many, especially my younger division, are interested in coming in and getting involved and then transitioning into a tackle sport.
So when do you recommend them play tackle?
So
In your
Or
opinion.
do you?
In your
yeah, I was
opinion.
gonna say,
Yeah.
so this
Remember, I'm a
is
journalist.
Right.
and
no,
I
no,
do
no, no,
journalist
no. I mean,
questions. I'm not gonna
first
throw
thing I would
stuff.
say is
right.
medically, I'm not a doctor. Number
Right.
one.
Right.
Number two, I'm just a guy who's played a pretty good amount of football at the collegiate level, a little bit
And you've
professionally.
suffered some head injuries.
More than I want to discuss, and plenty of hand injuries as well.
right.
But I think the range you should be looking at, and this is not just football. This is really hockey, lacrosse, any contact sport shouldn't be until around 7th, 8th grade. And the
Okay.
reason being is because if they are prepped in some degree prior to that point, contact merely becomes a part of doing business. Oh, I got hit. Fine, keep it moving. You do it too young. If your child is undersized and they get hit too hard, it becomes, I don't want to have anything to do with this. They get turned off to the
Yeah, it's
idea.
crazy. They're doing
Yeah.
it so young. These
Yeah.
football.
Exactly.
But they see it everywhere. I mean, NFL,
But-
the youth football contact
right.
leagues just here in our city.
And we're
Tons
finding
of
out the NFL lying about certain things that are coming out
Sure.
now. And now we're finding more and more the thing. And I look at head injuries in general and looking at it as a former professional wrestler and played 1 year of football, but my head injuries were from pro wrestling. That we just don't know about this.
Right.
And we don't know till we see more stories for so many more years because of the size and everything. And the one thing I think it's missing in football, and you see it, Chris, right firsthand with your players that come and play in this, is technique.
Yes.
The ability,
Yes.
and that's taught in a lot of different areas and positions in flag football, right?
Technique is taught. Some basics are taught. So anything that has to do with contact or blocking, we don't teach
No,
them
but
at
that
all.
can be
Right.
But in terms of technique of running, agility,
Yeah.
citing where the defensive
Right.
players are and getting away from them, absolutely that's taught. One of the biggest challenges, though, and you alluded to this a little bit, is what's being taught at the youngest fundamental levels. Okay, you got to look. One thing I always tell every parent, because I have parents in the league that ask, "Hey, my child's interested in getting tackle. Will you recommend a program here in the city or suburbs?" And I tell everybody, no.
Yes.
I'm not going to recommend anybody. And it's not because I don't feel that there aren't any good ones here, but I haven't personally dealt with any of the owners or the managers or the directors or the coaches to say wholeheartedly, hey, Coach Hall, send your son or daughter there. I'd sign off on this. We've built up credibility with parents, and it's important to protect that, especially if I'm going to say, hey, put your child in a potentially dangerous
Sure.
situation.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. Not until an organization here in the city or outside of the city says, hey, listen, we'd love to partner with you. Great, then let's talk.
Okay.
Invite me in. Let's understand. Because I can tell you right now, we get a cavalcade of kids that are interested in playing tackle once they hit that 11, 12, 13-year-old age, and I've got nowhere to send them.
But your coaches, Chris, are vital
Yes.
in this development fundamental of this whole idea of football. So do you recruit coaches? How do you get coaches who know what it is your mission is
Sure.
and the value of your league to then implement this development?
I've been pretty fortunate with the fact that a lot of my former teammates
Okay.
still live here locally in the city.
Okay.
And then also I've built a pretty good network over the years. I mean, meeting fine folks like yourself.
Thank you.
It's allowed me to really tap in and to find people that are just interested in working with kids.
Good.
Okay.
Sometimes that derives into coaching. Sometimes it's just I love working with kids,
Got it.
helping them get better. I love seeing
it.
kids become successful. So it's been a fortunate one.
With that many players, you have a lot of coaches you can mention. Not enough time for it. So, Chris,
Right.
best place to find information on you so people could sign up. The new
Absolutely.
season starts when?
September 1st is our new fall season.
Okay.
Best place to look for us is pghflagfootball.com. We've got a help center on there, a support group that actually answers questions as well. And then our number is 412-397-9004.
Okay, fantastic. And I think of one thing we were talking about fundamentals. Look at all the players, even their playing content, doing the 7-on-7s in the offseason.
Sure.
That's like a flag football in the 7-on-7.
It's crazy. I'll tell you what, just as a side note, I compare 7-on-7 to the rise of AAU basketball.
Right.
You know, you get a lot of kids, and we can talk about this for hours.
Yes.
AAU basketball is getting better products out of AAU. College is getting better products out of AAU than traditional high school teams. And there are kids that are saying, I don't even have to play high school basketball. I'll go AAU. I'm not saying that 7-on-7 has turned the corner like that.
No, but
It's growing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks again, Coach Hall.
Oh, yeah.
Hail the pick, Chris.
Absolutely. Hail the pick.
There we go.
I've done that with some Hall of Famers that have come on my show. And I
done
can
that,
talk-
you know, I
can
had to
talk-
be in the
talk
middle
to
of that.
And the ones that don't say it, that frustrate me. And they're pit players. I'll have to tell you about that off air sometime. Yeah. Okay. Thanks again for watching the Neil Haley Show. Next week, some more exciting guests. Check out Chris's stuff. It's fantastic. And I have a lot more questions, so you never know if he'll come back. Take care, everyone.